The B-17 saw early action in the Pacific War, where it conducted air raids against Japanese shipping and airfields. 6. But it was primarily employed by the USAF in the daylight component of the Allied strategic bombing campaign over Europe, complementing RAF Bomber Command's night bombers in attacking German industrial, military and civilian targets. 7. Of the roughly 1.5 million tons of bombs dropped on Nazi Germany and its occupied territories by Allied aircraft, over 640,000 tons, 42.6%, were dropped from B-17s. 8. At the start of 2024, 6 aircraft remain in flying condition. 9. About 50 survive in storage or are on static display, the oldest of which is the Swiss B-17D, which was flown in combat in the Pacific on the first day of the United States' involvement in World War II. There are also several reasonably complete wrecks, such as underwater, that have been found. B-17 survivors gained national attention in 2022 in the United States, when one was destroyed in a fatal mid-air collision with another warbird at an airshow. Development. Origins. Model 299 NX13372. Crashed Model 299. Boeing Y-1 B-17 in flight. On August 8, 1934, the USAC tendered a proposal for a multi-engine bomber to replace the Martin B-10. The Air Corps was looking for a bomber capable of reinforcing the air forces in Hawaii, Panama, and Alaska. 10 requirements were for it to carry a useful bomb load at an altitude of 10,000 feet 3,000 m for 10 hours with a top speed of at least 200 miles per hour 320 km/h. 11. They also desired, but did not require, a bomber with a range of 2,000 miles 3,200 km and a speed of 250 miles per hour 400 km/h. The competition for the Air Corps contract was to be decided by a fly-off between Boeing's design, the Douglas DB-1, and the Martin Model 146 at Wilbur Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. The prototype B-17, with the Boeing factory designation of Model 299, was designed by a team of engineers led by E. Gifford Emery and Edward Curtis Wells, and was built at Boeing's own expense. 12. It combined features of the company's experimental XB-15 bomber and 247 transport. 11. The B-17's armament consisted of 5.30 caliber 7.62 mm machine guns, with a payload up to 4,800 pounds 2,200 kilograms of bombs on 2 racks in the bomb bay behind the cockpit. The aircraft was powered by 4 Pratt & Whitney R1690 Hornet radial engines, each producing 750 HP 600 kilowatts at 7,000 feet 2,100 m. 13. The first flight of the Model 299 was on July 28, 1935 with Boeing Chief Test Pilot Leslie Tower at the controls. 1:14 the day before, Richard Williams, a reporter for the Seattle Times, coined the name Flying Fortress when observing the large number of machine guns sticking out from the new aircraft. He described it as a 15-ton flying fortress in a picture caption. 15. The most distinctive mount was Indiana the nose, which allowed the single machine gun to be fired toward nearly all frontal angles. 16. Boeing was quick to see the value of the name and had it trademarked for use. Note 1. Boeing also claimed in some of the early press releases that Model 299 was the first combat aircraft that could continue its mission if one of its 4 engines failed. 18. On August 20, 1935, the prototype flew from Seattle to Wright Field in 9 hours and 3 minutes with an average cruising speed of 252 miles per hour 406 km/h, much faster than the competition. 19. At the fly-off, the 4-engined Boeing's performance was superior to those of the twin-engine DB-1 and Model 146. In March 1935, Army Chief of Staff General Douglas MacArthur created GHQ Air Force and promoted Lieutenant Colonel Frank Maxwell Andrews to Brigadier General to become the head of GHQ Air Force. MacArthur and Andrews both believed that the capabilities of large four-engined aircraft exceeded those of shorter-ranged, twin-engine aircraft, and that the B-17 was better suited to new, emerging USAC doctrine. 2021 Their opinions were shared by the Air Corps procurement officers, and even before the competition had finished, they suggested buying 65 B-17s. 22-23. On October 30, 1935, a test flight determining the rate of climb and service ceiling was planned. The command pilot was Major Ployer Peter Hill, Wright Field Material Division Chief of the Flying Branch, his first flight in the Model 299. Co-pilot was Lieutenant Donald Putt, while Boeing Chief Test Pilot Leslie R. Tower was behind the pilots in an advisory role. Also on board were Wright Field Test Observer John Cutting and mechanic Mark Kogler. The plane stalled and spun into the ground soon after takeoff, bursting into flames. Though initially surviving the impact, Hill died within a few hours, and Tower on November 19. Post-accident interviews with Tower and Putt determined the control surface gust lock had not been released. 24 Doyle notes, the loss of Hill and Tower, and the Model 299, was directly responsible for the creation of the modern written checklist used by pilots to this day. 25-26. The crashed Model 299 could not finish the evaluation, thus disqualifying it from the competition. 23 While the Air Corps was still enthusiastic about the aircraft's potential, Army officials were daunted by its cost. 27 Douglas quoted a unit price of $58,200 equivalent to $1,018,000 in 2023-28 based on a production order of 220 aircraft, compared with $99,620 equivalent to $1,743,000 in 2023-28 from Boeing. 29 MacArthur's successor, Army Chief of Staff Malin Craig, cancelled the order for 65 YB-17s and ordered 133 of the twin-engined Douglas B-18 Bolo, instead. Secretary of War Harry Hines Woodring in October 1938 decided that no four-engine bombers, including B-17s, would be purchased by the War Department in 1939. 22-23-30. The loss was not total. But Boeing's hopes for a substantial bomber contract were dashed. Peter Bowers, 1976-31. Initial orders. Installation of fixtures and assemblies on a tail fuselage section of a B-17 at the Douglas plant in Long Beach, California, October 1942. Despite the crash, the USAC had been impressed by the prototype's performance, and on January 17, 1936, through a legal loophole, 32-33 the Air Corps ordered 13 YB-17s designated Y-1B-17 after November 1936 to denote its special F-1 funding for service testing. 23 The YB-17 incorporated a number of significant changes from the Model 299, including more powerful Wright R-18-2039 Cyclone engines. Although the prototype was company-owned and never received a military serial, the B-17 designation itself did not appear officially until January 1936, nearly 3 months after the prototype crashed. 34 The term XB-17 was retroactively applied to the NX-13372S airframe and has entered the lexicon to describe the first Flying Fortress. Between March 1 and August 4, 1937, 12 of the 13 Y-1B-17s were delivered to the 2nd Bombardment Group at Langley Field in Virginia for operational development and flight tests. 35 One suggestion adopted was the use of a pre-flight checklist to avoid accidents such as that which befell the Model 299. 33-36 Note 2 In one of their first missions, 3 B-17s, directed by lead navigator Lieutenant Curtis LeMay, were sent by General Andrews to intercept and photograph the Italian ocean liner Rex 610 miles 980 kilometers off the Atlantic coast. 38. The mission was successful and widely publicized. 3940 The 13th Y-1B-17 was delivered to the Material Division at Wright Field, Ohio, to be used for flight testing. 41. A 14th Y-1B-17 37-369, originally constructed for ground testing of the airframe's strength, was upgraded by Boeing with exhaust-driven General Electric turbo superchargers, and designated Y-1B-17A. Designed by Sanford Moss, engine exhaust gases turned the turbine's steel alloy blades, forcing high-pressure ram air into the Wright Cyclone GR-18 2039 engine supercharger. 42 Scheduled to fly in 1937, it encountered problems with the turbochargers, and its first flight was delayed until April 29, 1938. 43 The aircraft was delivered to the Army on January 31, 1939. 44 Once service testing was complete, the Y-1B-17S and Y-1B-17A were redesignated B-17 and B-17A, respectively, to signify the change to operational status. 45 The Y-1B-17A had a maximum speed of 311 miles per hour 501 km/h, at its best operational altitude, compared to 239 miles per hour 385 km/h for the Y-1B-17. Also, the Y-1B-17A's new service ceiling was more than 2 miles 3.2 km higher at 38,000 feet 12,000 m, compared to the Y-1B-17's 27,800 feet 8,500 m. These turbo superchargers were incorporated into the B-17B. 46. Opposition to the Air Corps' ambitions for the acquisition of more B-17s faded, and in late 1937, 10 more aircraft designated B-17B were ordered to equip 2 bombardment groups, one on each U.S. coast. 47 Improved with larger flaps and rudder and a well-framed, 10-panel plexiglass nose, the B-17Bs were delivered in 5 small batches between July 1939 and March 1940. In July 1940, an order for 512 B-17s was issued, 48 but at the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor, fewer than 200 were in service with the Army. 33.